Okay, so welcome. We're going to start second half of the course. So welcome to the 어버이날 special of the lecture. Yes. So today we're gonna talk about the memory system. So so far in the first half we went over basic logic design and zinc board, FPGA, all this fancy stuff. And for the second half, we're going to go over this memory system, and also we're going to go over like these neural network architectures, which is kind of emerging, interesting new applications. So we're going to go over all this stuff, and you're going to start on project. So here, why this like memory system is important and interesting. So here, this is Google TPU, Tensor Processing Unit, which is one of the very interesting example of a custom hardware, that actually built to accelerate its specific workloads. So in this case, Google tries to accelerate their like machine learning like workloads. So they're like a paper and pencil calculations. What is the motivation of this work was, let's say everyone in the world, let's say they actually use this like a voice like assistance, like a Google Assistant feature, which actually runs a bunch of like neural networks to recognize like a human voice plus like understand the meaning of these sentences. Then they actually calculate it, and if they actually all the like Android phone users use this like Google Voice feature like 3 minutes a day, then they actually need like twice as much computational power than today's like a data center. So that's like their calculation. So this is certainly not practical because it takes a lot of money to actually invest on this data center. So they actually tried instead of using GPU, they decided to go for a custom, like a specialized hardware that can accelerate this like machine learning, like a neural nets, at least like a 10x faster and more like energy efficient manner than today's GPU. Okay, that's the motivation of this like a piece of work, and they announced like this tensor processing unit in 2015. And here is they released a little bit of details of the design. This one is the board they used to actually, the AlphaGo, the Go like play like AI, Go playing AI that actually was running on this like a board, like a TPU. So here, it's hard to read, but if you see in this figure, so this one actually shows the x-axis shows the scale relative to original TPU, tensor processing unit, and y-axis show the relative performance. So this one actually shows if you scale up like a certain components in the TPU, how much this performance will grow additionally. So this actually shows the like a virtual like experiments. So here, if you see this like a blue line, so this actually shows the most like benefits over today's like the first generation GPU, first generation TPU. So this one shows that if we actually scale this like memory bandwidth, like DRAM bandwidth by 2x, like this point, then the performance will grow by almost like 80%. Okay, so this is like a scaling curve of, let's say you can arbitrarily increase the like amount of resource for the specific like module, then how much like additional performance you can get with this resource scaling. And the most like beneficial part is the memory bandwidth. So if you increase bandwidth, then the performance actually grows almost like linearly, right? So that was like their takeaway. So in short, in this specific like a design, the memory bandwidth actually determines TPU performance. That was the takeaway. So here, in this lecture, we're going to cover like this module. We actually cover a little bit of that. This one is like a memory controller and DRAM device in this lecture. So how this like DRAM works, how actually it operates, how we can optimize this like our system to better utilize this DRAM device and system. That's the kind of the topic of this lecture. And in your JET board, this like a memory controller is actually sitting in this chip. Okay, sitting on this chip, and this DRAM is the memory device, which is sitting on the same board. In this figure we actually have two parts, like two devices, and which is controlled by on chip like a memory controller. Okay, so we're gonna cover like these two parts, this one and this one. Actually, like this part in the chip. Okay, that's the topic of this lecture. Actually, this DRAM is like one of the most important components in modern computer systems. Okay, really very important for performance. So if you when you buy a new computer, I always recommend to put as much DRAM as you can. That's my recommendation for when you buy a new computer. Okay, usually it actually it pays better, pays off better than actually running like a higher like end CPU. Actually, instead of like using like higher end CPU, I would recommend you to put more DRAM into your system. That's kind of big like performance factor. Okay. So in our example, how we actually read input data to VRAM. So in our like design example, the CPU first reads data from DRAM, external DRAM first, because all of our data is initially placed on off-chip DRAM, right? And then the CPU actually read this like block of data from DRAM and write it to block RAM, like VRAM on chip, right? So that's the first thing. First, the CPU actually read the data, which is like a gigabyte like memory, which is big memory, right? So we actually initially place this DRAM on place data on DRAM, which is read by the CPU, and it will be copied onto on-chip VRAM. Okay, so if you see this, it's using like this, like a path, taking this path, and eventually we copy this data, block of data into VRAM, block RAM, right? So we copy the data into VRAM, and then my IP, like my whatever IP, the shifter or some whatever fancy matrix multiplier or whatever hardware block you design, can actually access this data through VRAM. Okay, that's our current design. What happens if like a hardware block directly access DRAM? Okay, so let's say you design a new IP. Let's say it could be like a matrix multiplier, or it could be some like a vector processor, image processor. So whatever hardware custom IP you design, and typically this hardware block directly access DRAM without without copying data by CPU. So this is called DMA, direct memory access. So instead of like going through the CPU, we usually the IP block actually put a request to read or write directly to DRAM. Then the data block of data will be actually copied over either from like DRAM to IP block or IP block to DRAM without intervention of the CPU. Okay, that's the idea of DMA, direct memory access, which is pretty widely used. So actually, by using DMA, the higher performance can be achieved than in case of using like a CPU. And this read and write requests from hardware block typically go through IOMMU. So if you remember, there's a question about IOMMU, right? So IOMMU is the memory management unit for individual like hardware IP. So each component has its own version of MMU, so that it actually is responsible for virtual to physical address translation and so on. So that's basically what this IOMMU does. So each hardware block uses its own virtual address. And so virtual address to physical address translation by IMMU is needed to send read and write requests to main memory. So in this lecture, we're going to answer the following questions: how can a hardware block can access DRAM, and what happens on DRAM subsystems for better performance? How we can optimize the software to have like better performance on DRAM, and we need to understand the parallelism available in DRAM. So starting from here, we're going to understand the internals of modern like a DRAM device, and then we're going to move on to the software side to how we can modify our software to better exploit these like DRAM devices. So that's what we're going to cover in this lecture. Okay. Actually, you know what? DRAM is probably the #1 like export item in Korea. I mean, that's kind of that makes the most money for Korea actually. So it's very important like a industry in a sense, because this is very like lucrative, profitable like business, especially today. So it would be good to understand the internals of it. So let's see how these modern like DRAM devices are organized. So here, this one actually shows a simple DRAM chip architecture. So if you open the DRAM like a chip, like open the DRAM, then it'll look like this. Very high level. It's basically nothing but a two-dimensional array on a chip. So it actually has like a two-dimensional array like this. So it actually has a bunch of cells. Each of these things is cell. So one cell can store 1 bit of information. Okay? And we have like a 2-dimensional array. And by the way, this one is called row. This is row. And this is called column. Okay? So if you want to access like a specific like a cell, you need to provide both like a row ID and column ID. Right? Because if you provide like a row ID, so whenever you access a DRAM, you first provide like a row address. So you provide a row address to the DRAM, then this like a specific entire like a row will be selected. Okay. So first in the step 1, I'm going to use different color. In step 1, you access select a specific row, or this is called activate. Okay, so step 1, if you want to access like a specific cell, then you first select a row. This is called activate. Okay, so you first activate a row, and then you do a select like a column. So usually you actually select not just 1 bit. Actually, you select like multiple like bits in a group. So this is called column address. So if you have a column address, then let's say you select like this column, for example. Then now you access like this specific cell, right? So this one is like step 2. You provide column access. You provide column address, either for like a read or write. Okay, to read like a specific like a column from the selected row. Okay, and this one is also called like a RAS. Like providing this like a row address is called like a row like address strobe, and this second operation is also called CAS, like a column address strobe. Okay, so in order to access like a specific like a group of cells, you need to actually do the 2 things. The first one is RAS, like a row address strobe, and second thing is like a CAS, like a column address strobe. So as a response of like CAS, like a column address strobe, the data will come out. Okay, so please remember there are 2 steps, step 1 and step 2. The first one is RAS, like a row address, like a second one is column CAS, column address. Okay, and modern chips actually have like a multiple of these arrays, not just one. So instead of like having like just one like a global array, today's like a DRAM actually has multiple banks in it. So each bank actually is like a 2-dimensional array. So in a sense, we have like multiple of this thing, like multiple of these arrays, like this. And then each bank, like all of these banks can be independently accessed. Okay, so if you have like a multiple arrays, then they can be accessed at the same time. For example, you are activating row 2 in array 1. At the same time, you activate like a row 8 in the array 2, and you activate like a row like a n in array like 3, and so on. You can actually do these things at the same time. Okay, so that's basically what this like banks are about. So here, modern chips have like a 4, actually more than 4. This is like an old version. So today's like a chip actually has like 8 to 16 banks internals. So that means this is called bank parallelism, because now we can access like a multiple arrays or multiple banks at the same time, simultaneously. So that's called like a bank parallelism. So in that way, you can actually service like a multiple like a request to the DRAM at the same time. So that's what why these multiple banks are important. So each like a logical bank physically implemented as many small arrays. So that's basically what the concept of bank is here. So as I said, there are 3 commands. Like there are like a largely actually there are more than this like 3, but there are 3 most important commands are activate, read write, and pre-charge. Okay, so this one is like a row. This one is what is called like a RAS. This is what is called like a column, like a CAS, column address strobe, and finally the pre-charge I'm going to explain later. So here, if you want to access like a specific cell, let's just cell. You actually activate like a specific row, right? And all of these rows actually share, all of these cells in the row actually share the same word line. This is like a word line. So in step 1, you provide like a row address to the row decoder, and this row decoder will select one of these like word lines, depending on the address from outside. So let's say row address coming in, then this like a specific word line will be selected, and all the cells in this attached to this word line will be selected at the same time. They will be selected as a group, and then this value, this is capacitor that actually stores 1 bit of information, right? So if this like a word line is selected, so this like transistor is like switch. So if you remember, this is transistor, and let's say this was input. So this was like a switch, right? So if input value is 0, then this one is disconnected, right? And input value is 1, this one is connected. So if input becomes 1, this switch is closed, right? So if this word line is selected, then all the cells attached to this word line will be selected, meaning that this one will be connected like this. Okay? So and the value in this cell will be propagated to this like a shared bit line. So this one is bit line, by the way. So this is word line. So once like a word line is selected, then the value of the cell will be propagated to the bit line. Okay? So and then you can read or write the value through this like a bit line. Okay? And this one is called sense amplifier because this cell is really tiny. I mean, this is really tiny like a capacitor, like a very small it's kind of a very small battery, right? So this is a tiny capacitor. So now you actually have this like a bit line has a lot bigger capacitance. So even if you actually connect these two lines, so let's say this one is value 1, then this one will be completely charged. So the charge will be propagated to the large bin line. So it will actually change the voltage of this bin line in a very small amount. Okay, and then what this sense amplifier does is it actually amplifies this like a small offset from the nominal value to make it either like a 1 or a 0 depending on the value of this cell. Okay, so eventually the value of this like a cell will be read to the outside, propagate to the outside by the sense amplifier, and it'll take like a TRCD time. By the way, this TRCD, is basically it basically calculates how much time it takes to activate a row. So activating a row means eventually you close this like a signal. You connect these two capacitor to this wire, and then eventually this bin line value become like a stabilized. Then this one is basically it actually takes some time to basically get to make this like a voltage stabilized. And that's basically TRCD time, which is like activate to read the delay. So after like this amount of time, now these values can be read or be written by outside request. So now you are ready for like column request. So that's basically delay like activate to read delay. And after once you actually request like a column access, like a CAS, the second operation, read or write operation, then after a certain number of delay, certain amount of delay, now this value will come out through the pin, like through the chip pins, right? So this is called like column delay, like column latency. So column latency is basically once you provide this column address, how long it's going to take to read the value is become available outside the chip. This is called like a column latency. Okay, and then finally, once you are done with your column access, you probably want to close this like a row. The closing by this row means that let's say you want to access like a different row this time, like this one, right? Then what you need to do is first you need to disconnect this like connection between the two. Disconnect it, and then you need to pre-charge like this bit line to like a certain like a predetermined value, voltage level. So this one is called like a pre-charge. So after you are done with like this row, then you need to actually close it. What I mean by closing is like a pre-charging the bin line. So once you're done with the pre-charging, and this like this array is ready to take like another like a request, like an activation request for different low, right? So that's what I mean by this like pre-charge. So let's say it also takes like another certain number of time, TRP, which is like a pre-charge latency. 네. 음. 음. 뭐지? 다시 시작해 볼게요. 오케이. 자, 여기까지 이제 컬럼 액세스 해가지고 이제 리드나 라이트 리퀘스트, 컬럼 리퀘스트 들어오면 데이터가 나오는 시간까지 걸리는 게 이제 CL, 이제 컬럼 레이턴시라는 거고, finally 이제 만약에 내가 이 그 로우를 다 이제 읽었으면 이제 다른 로우를 읽기 위해서 지금 현재 오픈되어 있는 로우를 닫고 이제 다시 이제 그 빈 라인을 원래 볼티지로 프리차르지를 해야 되거든요. 그걸 하는데 드는 레이턴시가 프리차르지라고 해요. 그래서 프리차르지 레이턴시. So let's say now you're done with this like a row, so you want to actually close it because you can only open one like a row at a time. So let's say you're done with this row, then you close it, then you actually pre-charge this bin line. Pre-charge this bin line. Pre-charge this bin line. Actually, to pre-charge it to like a 1/2 VDD level. 그러니까 잠깐만 좀 설명하면은 이게 원래 어떻게 되냐면은 그 빈 라인 자체가 원래는 시작하기 전에는 2분의 1 VDD 중간 레벨로 싹 세팅이 돼 있어요. 근데 만약에 내가 어떤 그 셀이랑 이렇게 연결이 돼가지고 만약에 이게 조금 이제 플러스 1, 그러니까 1로 차지가 돼 있거나 0으로 디스차지가 돼 있겠죠. 근데 요거를 연결을 하면은 얘가 값이 조금 떨어져요. 원래 값이 뭐냐에 따라서. 그러면 밑에 있는 센스 앰플리파이어라는 애가 하는 게 뭐냐면은 현재 지금 레퍼런스 볼티지 레벨 2분의 1 VDD에 비해서 얘가 조금 올라갔는지 조금 내려갔는지를 보고 이거를 완전히 1로 올리거나 0으로 내리거나. 그러니까 여러분이 전기전자배로 들었으면 디퍼런셜 앰플리파이어라는 거 혹시 들었는지 모르겠는데 그 값을 완전히 0으로 만들거나 완전히 1로 증폭해주는 이제 그런 역할을 하는 거예요. 그래서 실제로 이 값에 따라서 실제로 이 값이 만약에 이게 원래 값이 1이었다 그러면은 얘는 VDD로 수렴하게 될 거고 결국 얘가 만약에 0이었다 그러면 얘는 결국 0V로 수렴하게 되겠죠. 이렇게 볼티지를 쫙 완전 0으로 올려주든 1로 올려주든지 0으로 낮춰주든지 그 역할을 하는 게 요 밑에 있는 센스 앰프예요. 센스 앰플리파이어. Okay? So I'm going to come back. So what this sense amplifier does is it amplifies the value of this like a cell value to make it complete 1 or complete 0 depending on the value of it. Okay? And then once you are done, you need to actually close this like row. So what I mean by closing this row is that you first need to disconnect this connection. So you need to actually disconnect it from this bit line from this like a charge cell. That's a step 1. And step 2 is that you need to recover the voltage level of this bin line to again 1/2 VDD, the original voltage level. Okay. Then now this bin line becomes like a ready again to to sense the voltage from this like a capacitor. So this is the third time called TRP. So here there are key timing parameters: TRCD, TROS, TRP, and TRC. So here I already explained these two, this one and this one. So I'm going to explain these two as well. So here is what I just explained. So I just explained the voltage sharing between the capacitor, like a cell capacitor, and the bin line. So let's say initially, this like a cell actually has the value of 1. So value of 1 means now this one actually is fully charged, right? So fully charged means that now this one actually voltage level is VDD, right? And initially this bin line is pre-charged to 0.5 VDD. It's only half like full. Okay, that's like a before, like initial state, right? And then let's say this specific like a row is selected. Then now these two lines will be connected, right? Then what's going to happen is like what is called charge sharing. So charge sharing is what happens when you actually connect like these two capacitors on different voltage level. So now because this one is like a voltage, this one is fully charged like a VDD, and this one is like a half charged like 1/2 VDD. So if you actually connect these two like thing, then what will be the final voltage level? 그러니까 완전 VDD로 풀 꽉 차 있는 커패시터랑 반만 차지되어 있는 빈 라인이랑 두 개를 딱 연결하면은 이 볼티지가 어디에서 서로 만나겠어요? Somewhere between the two. 그죠? Somewhere between the two인데 얘네들의 커패시턴스의 비율에 따라 달라지겠죠. 그죠? 근데 만약에 엄청나게 큰 우리 그 어항에다가 물 몇 방울 떨어뜨린다고 이게 많이 늘어나겠어요? 근데 사실은 이게 훨씬 크거든요. 커패시턴 얘가 훨씬 커요. This one is a lot bigger in terms of capacitance. So if you actually connect these two, this one will be actually they will be reconciled at like a 0.5 VDD plus small delta. Okay, if it's fully charged. What happens is it was discharged. What happens if the original like a cell capacitance was 0? Then it will be, the final like a voltage level will be 1/2 VDD minus delta. Right? Like a little bit smaller than like 1/2 VDD. Assuming that this like capacitance is much bigger. Okay? And what this like a sense amplifier does is, as I said before, it actually senses the difference between this like a final like a charge, like a small charge, and the reference voltage level 1/2 VDD. And if it's like a greater than like 1/2 VDD, then actually it continues to develop to develop this like a voltage difference to make it 1, like a VDD eventually. And if it's less than like a 1/2 VDD, it also develop the voltage difference to make it like eventually 0. Okay? So in a sense, you can think of it this way. Let's say we have something like this. Let's say we have this is called a sense amplifier. So what this sense amplifier does is, let's say you have a cross-coupled inverter like this. And let's say this one is originally charged to 1/2 VDD. And this one is originally charged to 1, now this one becomes 1/2 VDD plus like a small delta. Okay? Then what's going to happen after a little bit of delay? Because this one is a little bit closer to 1, right? So this one now will become more, become 1. And now this one will become more of 0. So if you actually run like a, circulate this loop for a long time, eventually, this one will go to 0 and this one will go to VDD. Okay? That's what this like a sense amplifier does. Okay? 무슨 얘기인지 아시겠죠? 그러니까 결국은 셀이라는 굉장히 작은 커패시턴트에 저장되어 있는 1이나 0이라는 값을 우리가 읽어낼 수 있어야 되는데, 그죠? 근데 그걸 어떻게 센싱을 하냐면은 처음에 빈 라인이라는 그 읽어내는 그 라인을 2분의 1 VDD 볼티지 레벨로 세팅을 해놔요. 그런 다음에 얘랑 이 셀이랑 서로 만약에 워드 라인으로 연결을 해가지고 이렇게 딱 두 개를 연결시켜버리면 이 볼티지 레벨이 셀의 값에 따라서 2분의 1 VDD에서 조금 위로 올라가거나 아니면 조금 밑으로 내려가겠죠. 결과적으로. 그러면은 그 작은 볼티지의 델타를 얘랑 만약에 비교하면 어떻게 되겠어요? 2분의 1 VDD가 레퍼런스 볼티지라고 하면은 얘랑 비교해서 조금이라도 위에 올라가 있으면은 얘는 결국은 피드백이 걸리면서 결국은 얘는 1쪽으로 수렴하게 될 거고 얘는 0쪽으로 가겠죠. 완전 풀 1볼트가 되겠죠. 풀 VDD가 되겠죠. 거꾸로 얘가 만약에 2분의 1 VDD 마이너스 델타면은 얘가 거꾸로 이제 피드백이 걸리면서 얘는 완전 0으로 수렴하고 얘는 한쪽은 1로 이렇게 가겠죠. 작은 차이지만. 그러니까 그 작은 그 미세한 그 델타라는 볼티지 레벨을 보고 이게 결국은 이렇게 벌어지거나 아니면 이렇게 벌어지는 거죠. 1, 0, 0, 1 이렇게. 그죠? 그래서 마지막에 그렇게 벌어진 값을 읽어내는 거예요. So that's what's happening here. So here, let's say, if you actually do connect these two, like this capacitor to bin line, then eventually they will, let's say, it will be the final voltage level will be 0.5 volt plus delta, and because of using like this sense amplifier, now this bin line and also like capacitance, the voltage will continue to go up until it becomes VDD, right? Eventually it will become VDD like this. Okay? So this process is called activation. So this process called like activation. So initially, there's charge sharing, and this like a charge like a small like a delta will be sensed and amplified by sense amplifier, and eventually this bin line will become VDD in this example. Okay, so this TRCD is the activate to read delay. So you can it becomes like a 75% of a voltage level, then now you can actually provide like a read command. So now you can actually start to like column access, and eventually now this one becomes fully like the voltage becomes fully restored like to VDD. Then now you can actually close it, because now this like a voltage level is fully like restored in this cell. So if you want, maybe you can actually close this like a row to access like a different row. So as I said, this RCD is like activate to read delay, and TRAS is the this one is like the activation times. Actually, we have like more details here. So here, TRC is the minimum time from start of the one row access to the start of the next. So this is like a cycle. This is called cycle time. In the previous figure, the cycle time is this thing, from first activate to like a next activate. So this one is called like a cycle time, TRC. And second one is minimum time between activation to like column access, like CAS. So this is called like activate to read delay. This is called TRCD. So that's basically a minimum like elapsed time required after you provide like an activation command, and to provide like a new column access command. So that's like a minimum time required between the two. And the CL is like a column, like CAS latency, like column access latency. So minimum time from start of the column access command to the start of read data. So how long it's going to take once you actually provide this like a column access command, how long it's going to take the value actually comes out from the chip. And TRP is the pre-charge latency. So pre-charge latency is, once you actually decide to close this like a row, how long it's going to take to pre-charge this bin line again to 1/2 VDD. So like this time. So let's say you decide to, pre-charge this bin line to 1/2 VDD again to access like a different row. So this is the amount of time it takes to pre-charge its bin line. Okay, so that's really TRP. TRAS is basically how long it's going to take to how long you have to wait before provide this like a pre-charge command after you open the row. Okay? 그러니까 무슨 얘기냐면은 이 TRAS는 뭐냐면은 처음에 우리가 액티베이션을 하게 되면 이제 전체 로우가 다 이제 차지가 이렇게 디벨롭이 되기 시작하겠죠. 차지가 이제 빈라인이 이제 점점 볼티지 레벨이 이렇게 올라가든지 아니면 이렇게 떨어지든지 결국은 1이나 0으로 수렴하게 되잖아요. 근데 만약에 우리가 이거를 끝내고 다음 로우를 액세스하고 싶으면은 프리차지 커맨드를 던져야 되는데 프리차지 커맨드를 던지기 전에 이게 완전히 이게 값이 수렴할 때까지 기다려야 되겠죠. 수렴할 때까지 기다렸다가 그 다음에야 이제 이거를 닫을 수 있으니까 이제 로우를 클로즈할 수 있으니까 그때까지 기다려야 하는 최소한의 시간을 TRAS라고 불러요. 그러니까 처음 액티베이트를 해서 완전히 그 볼티지가 0 또는 1로 수렴할 때까지 걸리는 시간. 그죠? 그게 TRAS죠. 그 TRAS가 지난 다음에야 우리가 이제 프리차지라는 커맨드를 새로 던질 수 있는 거죠. 그러니까 프리차지를 하게 되면 다시 이제 원래 그 2분의 1 VDD 상태로 돌아가니까 이제 다른 로우를 이제 액티베이트 할 수 있는 거죠. So these are like key like DRAM timing parameters, TRC, RCD, column CAS latency, and pre-charge latency. And typical values are this is kind of generations old, like DDR2 800. It's like around like 2010. It's like about like 80 years old, 8 years ago. So it's kind of old DRAM, but this is typical number like a 12.5 nanosecond for RCD, and column latency, CAS latency is like a 12.5 nanosecond, and pre-charge latency is only like 12.5 nanosecond. Okay. And what is DDR? So today's like DRAMs are like mostly like DDR. You ever buy a computer? You can actually choose the parts, right? And then they are the spec. If you see the spec, they usually have like a DDR 4, maybe DDR3, 4, or GDDR. If you play games in GPU, there are GDDR or HBM, all these things, right? They are actually DRAM specs, right? And DDR is the current like a standard for desktop and servers. And DDR is like a double data rate. The reason why it's called DDR is that it actually provides a value on both rising edge and the falling edge of the clock. Okay, instead of like providing the data only at the rising edge of the clock, it actually provides rising edge and falling edge. It provides new data in both like rising edge and falling edge. So here, this one actually shows like 3 dimensions. We have bank, row, and column. So as I said, we have row here and column here, and we have multiple banks of it. We have multiple like 2-dimensional arrays, right? So we have like a more than like a SDRAM, like a DDR. SDRAM is like a synchronous DRAM. This S is like a synchronous. So synchronous means it actually has clock. Okay? So like in old generation DRAM, they didn't have any clock. So that's like asynchronous DRAM. But in this case, we have like a clock in this like memory subsystem. So it's called like a synchronous DRAM. And all of this like a major, like most of this DRAM available today are synchronous. They actually have clock. Okay? I don't know, you have probably seen like something like DDR4 21300 or something. Have you seen something like this? DRAM parts, like this number. So this number actually shows how much data you can pump out of the DRAM. So higher the better. Okay? So this is basically the DRAM spec, like a standard. So in modern DRAM, it's organized in 3-dimensional like structure: row, column, and banks. Okay. So you provide a like activate command, then you select like a specific row. And you actually, after like a TRCD delay, now this actually entire row is activated. So it's now ready to read. So now, after that, you actually provide this like a column, like access command, like a read or write command. Then, you actually select one of these like a columns. Actually, typical column size is like a 32 bytes or something. So it's kind of, not just a single bit, but it's a group of bits. So you select like a specific column, then you actually select specific like a subset of this like a column, specific like a subset of row. Then this is called a column access. And then after the TCL, this like a column latency or cost latency, now this data actually comes out of the chip. Okay, and then so if you actually you actually deliver like this pre-charge command, then these bit lines will be pre-charged again back to like a 1/2 VDD, like at the middle of the two, 1 over 0, and it takes some amount of a time called TRP, like a pre-charge time. Then it's now become ready again to activate like a different row. Okay, and then you can repeat these things again and again. Now you can activate a new row and read like a specific like a column, and then you do pre-charge, and then you activate a new row, and then you read again like other column, and then you pre-charge again. You repeat this process. 이 3개의 커맨드의 의미는 아시겠어요? activate하고 중간에 read나 write, 그 다음에 pre-charge. 항상 이런 사이클을 돌아요. 그러니까 한번 activate 한 다음에 컬럼 액세스를 해가지고 실제로 데이터를 특정한 컬럼을 읽거나 쓴 다음에, 물론 이제 여러 번 컬럼 액세스 할 수도 있죠. 한 번 읽는 게 아니라 여러 번 읽을 수도 있지만, 이거를 컬럼 액세스를 한 다음에 마지막에 다 끝나면은 프리차지 해가지고 원래 그 빈라인을 원래 2분의 1 VDD 레벨로 다시 프리차지 한 다음에 다른 로우를 이제 또 액티베이트 하는 거죠. 그래서 이제 또 거기서 또 읽고 이런 식으로 쭉 반복을 하는 거죠. 그래서 이게 하나의 어떻게 보면 사이클이죠. 하나의 사이클. DRAM 액세스 사이클이 activate, column access, pre-charge. 이게 하나의 그냥 사이클을 어떻게 보면 만드는 거죠. 그래서 이런 프로세스를 계속 반복해서 DRAM의 다른 로케이션을 읽어내는 거죠. So, as I said, today's DRAM is like a synchronous. They actually have clocks. So here, the original like SDRAM, let's say original SDRAM, SDR is like a single data rate. Original SDRAM actually has like only provided new value only at the rising edge of the clock, right? And the first generation of DDR, the first generation of data, like a double data rate, they actually, use the same like clock cycles, but actually they provide data at both like a rising edge and falling edge, like this. So eventually, this one actually provides like a 2x higher data rate than the first one without increasing the clock rate. 그죠? 클럭 레이트는 똑같은데 얘는 데이터를 위로 올라갈 때도 새로운 데이터가 나오고 아래 내려올 때도 새로운 데이터가 나오니까 같은 클럭 레이트지만 데이터의 레이트는 2배죠. 2x data rate for the same clock cycle. And DDR2, in DDR generation 2, they actually increase the clock rate, clock cycle time. They actually reduce the clock cycle time by half, or increase the clock rate by 2. So now, this one actually provide 2x more, data than, this DDR. And again, DDR3, they increase this rate by 2 again. So now actually they provide like 2x higher data rate than like a DDR2. Okay? So increase the clock speed of memory interface. So in this way, we actually increase the data rate. So one question is, let's say you increase this like I/O rate, like an input/output, like a I/O pins, like a clock rate. Then what happens to the internals of the chip? Internals of the DRAM array. So if you want to actually provide like a 2x more like a data, then you also need to increase this like a rate of data, internal like a array data rate by 2x, right? In order to feed like this data to the outside. And what happens here is that, instead of like increasing the clock rate, it actually increased the parallelism of the access. Okay, so here if you see, in original like SDRAM, clock rate was 100 megahertz, and core frequency was 100 megahertz too. So it actually provides us enough. The internal core actually has the same like a data rate as the external like pin data rate. Okay, then in DDR1, now we actually latch the value in both like rising edge and the falling edge. So now this effective data rate becomes like data frequency becomes 200 megahertz because it's as good as like running like a 200 megahertz clock, because now we actually latch the data in both rising edge and falling edge, right? So then we need to increase this, either like you need to increase this core clock frequency as well, like the internal bandwidth of the array, or you actually need to fetch more data using parallelism. And today's DDL actually takes the latter, the second approach. Instead of like increasing the core clock frequency, it actually maintains the same like internal like array like clock frequency, but now you actually read like a 2x more data in parallel. Okay, so here you see here, instead of like using like an n bit, it actually fetches like a 2n bits here. So 2n bits here. So now we can actually read like a 2x more data, and they will be fed to the I/O pads, so that they actually provide they can satisfy the data rate demanded by the I/O, like chip I/O. And in DDR2, again, it doesn't increase the clock rate, but now it does like a 4x more data than the original like SDRAM. So this is called, by the way, this DDR2 is called like a 4N prefetch architecture, because compared to original like SDRAM, it actually reads like a 4x more bits to feed the output pins, right? So this is called like a 4N prefetch architecture, because now you read like a 4 times more data than the original SDRAM, and then you actually serialize it to, output it at like a 4x like a rate. Okay. Likewise, in like a DDR3 DRAM, it's called like an 8N prefetch architecture, because now you read like 8x more data compared to the original like SDRAM together, right? And then you actually, stream it, the outside of the chip, using the POTX like 8x more higher like a data rate. So this actually shows another view of like a prefetch diagram. So compared to original like a SDRAM architecture, now you actually have like a 4 more channels. This is, by the way, GIO is like a global I/O. So let's say you have like 8-bit DQ pin. So DQ pin is like how many bits you can provide in single cycle. Let's say you have like a DRAM chip, like this. DRAM chip. Then there are certain number of like bits you can provide, right? D0, D1. How many bits you can provide? Like a D8, maybe D7. So if you assume like a X8 device, then actually you have like 8 pins used for providing the data, read and write data. Only 8 pins. Then, by the way, this number, this 8 is an NDQ. Like this is DQ. This is called DQ pin. DQ0, DQ. Actually, DQ1. Not D0, D1. Actually, DQ1, DQ2, DQ7. So we actually have like 8 data pins here. Then internally, you actually fetch like 32 bits because your data rate is like a 4x, right, compared to SDRAM. So in order to satisfy this like a data rate, you actually need to fetch like a 4x more data than the original like SDRAM. So now you actually have like a 4x more bits at the same time, which is like a 32-bit in this example. And you send it over like a 4 like edges, 4 rising edge, falling edge, rising edge, falling edge. 그러니까 원래 SDRAM에서는 8비트로 그냥 이거를 하나의 데이터를 트랜스퍼하려고 8비트 데이터 트랜스퍼하려고 그러면 얘도 그냥 똑같은 클럭 레이트로 돌면 되잖아요. 하나 들어오고 하나 나가고 하나 나오고 하나 들어오고 하나 나오고 이렇게 되니까. 근데 만약에 데이터 레이트이 4배로 빨라졌는데 얘 클럭 레이트이 똑같다고 하면은 얘는 어떻게 하냐면은 4배로 더 많이 데이터를 한꺼번에 읽은 다음에 첫 번째 사이클에 얘가 나오고 두 번째 사이클에 얘가 나오고 세 번째 사이클에 얘가 나오고 네 번째 사이클에 얘가 나오고 이런 식으로 한꺼번에 더 많이 읽어가지고 요거를 하나씩 이렇게 4사이클에 걸쳐서 내보내는 거죠. 4분의 1씩. 그죠? 그렇게 해가지고 인터널 그 밴드위스랑 아웃풋 그 익스터널 밴드위스의 그걸 맞춰주는 거죠. So actually this one shows that now we actually fetch like a 4x more data at the same time and to actually satisfy the bandwidth demand from I/O. Likewise, in DDR3, it actually does like a 3x, 8x prefetch, so that it actually reads like 8x more data compared to SDRAM. So let's do some analysis of like memory latency. So let's say you have a cache miss. So if you cache miss, then you actually go through the cache, and you actually go through the memory controller, and this memory controller actually generates some like a column and row commands to read like a specific cache block, right? And then you send the data back to the CPU. Okay. So here, there can be some like a delay. Let's say this memory transaction request may be delayed in the CPU queue. And also, this transaction request sent to memory controller and transaction converted into like command sequence, like activation, read or write, all these things is converted. And this command sent to the DRAM, and this DRAM access latency actually depends on the state of the bank, right? So why is it so? So how much time it's going to take? Let's say you want to access like a specific column, then the column access latency may vary depending on the state of the bank. Why is it so? 그러니까 만약에 어떤 컬럼 액세스를 하고 싶은데 현재 지금 DRAM 뱅크가 어떤 상태냐에 따라 가지고 그 레이턴시가 달라질 수 있다는 거죠. 어떤 경우에는 되게 빨리 끝날 수 있겠어요. 빨리 액세스할 수 있는 경우는. 그렇지. 같은 로우에 떨어지는 경우. 지금 예를 들면 로우가 이미 오픈되어 액티베이시 끝나 있는데 그 오픈되어 있는 로우에 컬럼을 액세스하는 경우에는 굉장히 빨리 끝나겠죠. 왜냐면 액티베이트 할 필요가 없으니까. 그냥 컬럼 액세스만 다시 던지면 되겠죠. Okay? So in case of like the row is already open, so this is called like an open row. Okay? So if the row you try to access is already open, then you only need like one CAS command to read out the data, right? In the second case, when this one will happen, when this case will happen, RAS plus CAS. What is the state here? One of the 3 cases can happen. This is case 1, case 2, case 3. What is the second case? Second case는 뭘까? 두 번째 케이스는. 얘를 실행하는데 라스하고 카스가 걸리는데, 라스 딜레이 플러스 카스 딜레이가 걸리는데, 이 두 번째 케이스는 어떤 케이스일까요? 그렇지. 다른 로우지만 클로즈되어 있는 경우지. 그러니까 사실 오픈되어 있는 경우가 아니라 오픈되어 있는 경우는 마지막이겠죠. 그러니까 내가 예를 들면 액세스를 하려고 하는데 현재 다른 로우가 오픈되어 있다고 하면은 걔를 먼저 프리차지를 한 다음에 그 다음에 다시 액티베이트하고 다시 컬럼 액세스 해야 되니까 프리, 라스, 카스 세 개의 오퍼레이션 다 해야 되겠죠. 그런 경우는 최악의 경우. This is 그러니까 오픈 로우인데 오픈 different row is open. 최악의 경우죠. 그러니까 오픈이 내가 지금 원하는 뱅크에 지금 로우가 오픈이 돼 있긴 한데 이미 액티베이트 돼 있긴 돼 있는데 내가 지금 액세스 하려는 로우가 아니야. 그럼 어떻게 되냐면 걔를 먼저 프리차지를 해가지고 빈라인을 다시 2분의 1 VDD로 프리차지한 다음에 그 다음에 다시 내가 원하는 로우로 액티베이션을 날려가지고 그 액티베이션 한 다음에 그 다음에 그게 끝나면 이제 컬럼 액세스 날려야 되니까 요 세 개의 그 레이턴시를 다 페이해야 되겠죠. 근데 두 번째는 뭐예요? 두 번째는 this one is closed row. 무슨 얘기냐면은 어떤 이유인지 모르지만 이미 프리차지는 했어. 이미 로우가 클로즈 돼 있어요. 그래서 현재 지금 오픈돼 있는 게 아니라 로우가 이미 프리차지가 돼 있어가지고 지금 2분의 1 VDD로 빈라인이 다 지금 프리차지가 돼 있고 지금 현재 로우 자체가 클로즈 돼 있어요. 현재 액티브한 로우가 없어요. 그러면은 거기에서 내가 특정한 만약에 컬럼 액세스 하고 싶으면 그냥 액티베이트 한 다음에 바로 컬럼 액세스 하면 되겠죠. 그죠? So, depending on the state of the DRAM, you actually have to pay one of these like a three, number of cycles. This one is the best case. This one is the worst case. And this one is in the middle. Okay? So you actually have to, for like a DRAM access, you need to pay, pay the cycle depending on one of the three cases. And finally, you also need to pay these like cycles to transfer this data back to CPU. So the entire DRAM latency is A plus B plus C plus D plus E plus F, but E may vary depending on the state of the DRAM. Okay. So let's take a more detailed look of interaction between CPU cache and memory. 네. 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 클로즈 됐다는 게 프리차지가 완료됐다는 말이에요. 클로즈 됐다는 말은 지금 현재 액티브한 로우가 없다는 뜻이에요. 완전히 그냥 예를 들면 여러분들이 처음에 시스템을 부팅하면은 처음에 그 모든 시스템이 그냥 이렇게 오픈되어 있지도 않고 그냥 아무 상태 없이 그냥 모든 게 그냥 2분의 1 VDD로 차지되어 있고 이제 액티베이트 할 수 있는 현재 상태가 되어 있겠죠. 그 상태가 클로즈드고요. 만약에 어떤 로우가 오픈되어 있다고 하면 특정한 로우가 지금 센스 앰플리파이어 밑으로 내려와가지고 지금 현재 그러니까 컬럼 액세스를 받을 수 있는 상태라는 얘기죠. 그래서 그게 이제 제가 오픈이라고 얘기하는 거는 특정한 로우가 이미 액티베이트가 돼가지고 밑에 지금 컬럼 액세스를 받을 수 있는 상태가 오픈이라고 제가 표현하는 상태고, 클로즈라는 거는 이미 프리차지 리퀘스트가 들어가서 그 빈라인들이 전부 다 2분의 1 VDD로 다 프리차지가 됐고 현재 어떤 셀도 연결이 안 돼 있는 그런 상태. 그게 이제 클로즈드 상태죠. 클로즈드 하여튼. 예. 두 번째 경우는요. 그러니까 예를 들면 이런 거죠. 그러니까 두 개의 메모리 리퀘스트가 있는데 뭐 한 개의 메모리 리퀘스트가 있다고 칩시다. 한 개의 메모리 리퀘스트가 있는데 얘를 처리한 다음에 로우 그 액티베이트 한 다음에 이제 컬럼 액세스까지 했어요. 그러니까 로드나 리드나 라이트 컬럼 액세스까지 했는데 더 이상 펜딩되어 있는 리퀘스트가 없어. 메모리 그 컨트롤러에 펜딩되어 있는 리퀘스트가 없으면 그럼 얘를 그냥 메모리 컨트롤러가 그냥 프리차지 리퀘스트를 보내가지고 그냥 얘를 프리차지 시켜버릴 수가 있거든요. 프리차지 시켜버리면 이제 대신 다음 리퀘스트가 들어왔을 때 빨리 액티베이션 바로 시작할 수 있는 장점이 있겠죠. 근데 만약에 컨트롤러가 내가 지금 예를 들면 현재 지금 펜딩되어 있는 모든 리퀘스트를 다 처리를 했는데 내 짐작에는 앞으로 다음에 올 리퀘스트가 왠지 똑같은 로우에 떨어질 것 같다. 그러면 얘가 이걸 프리차지를 안 하고 그냥 기다리고 있겠죠. 왜냐하면 내 그냥 예측으로는 아직 못 봤지만 미래에 오는 리퀘스트가 왠지 이 로우에 로컬리티가 있어서 왠지 떨어질 것 같다는 그런 확신이 있으면 그럼 그걸 클로즈 안 하고 그냥 오픈된 상태로 놔두고 있는 거죠. 그럼 그 다음에 리퀘스트가 실제로 왔을 때 만약에 진짜로 그 로우에 떨어지는 리퀘스트면 이제 1번 케이스가 되는 거고요. 근데 그게 재수가 없게 나는 이게 이 로우에 떨어질 줄 알았는데 엉뚱한 다른 로우, 같은 뱅크에 있는 다른 로우에 떨어졌다. 그러면은 3번 케이스가 되는 거죠. 2번 케이스는 아까 얘기한 대로 그 메모리 컨트롤러가 그냥 지금 펜딩돼 있는 리퀘스트가 없으니까 그냥 클로즈 하겠다 해가지고 그냥 프리차이징 날려버리면 그냥 그럼 이제 2번 케이스가 되는 거겠죠. 그죠? 그러니까 사실은 메모리 컨트롤러가 그런 걸 이제 고려해서 이제 이런 걸 커맨드를 날리는 거예요. 지금 현재 리퀘스트에 오는 패턴을 보고 앞으로 이제 미래에 어떤 리퀘스트가 올지 이런 걸 짐작해서 이게 되게 로컬리티가 높은 리퀘스트라고 생각이 되면 그러면 이제 계속 열어놓는 거고, 그게 아니라 왠지 다른 로컬리티가 별로 없는 리퀘스트라고 하면 이제 그냥 클로즈 하는 거고, 이런 식으로 이제 계속 좀 인텔리전트하게 하는 거죠. So what happens when load instruction is executed? Here, this is a simple review of computer architecture. So let's say you execute load instruction here in CPU. Then in cache hit case, the data will be provided by the cache. It's very, very fast, right? But if you actually have cache miss, then now this request will be sent to the memory controller. So it takes some time to send the request from cache to memory controller. And this memory controller actually translates this memory request into multiple commands, like a DRAM commands, right? Depending on the state of the DRAM, it may actually provide, it actually has generate like, activate like a read and pre-charge, some like combination of them. Then eventually after some number of delay, it will come back like this. And then, also it takes some delay to transfer this data back to CPU. So overall, it could take like somewhere between like a 40 to 15 nanosecond. So if you actually run like 1 gigahertz CPU, then this one will be, something like, this one will be the like, if you run like 1 gigahertz CPU, it will be like a 40 to 50 like a cycles of 40 to 50 CPU cycles. So it will be like a long like delay. And average like memory access latency, like average load latency will be calculated in the following manner. So let's say you have cache hit rate of 90%, then you can actually calculate in the weighted sum of the two. So 90% of the time, it will take only one cycle. Let's say assume like a cache hit time is like one cycle. Then for the 90% of the time, it will take only 1 nanosecond, which is 1 clock cycle. But for 10% of the time, it can take like 100 nanoseconds. Actually, this one is calculation is already, the parameters are really mismatched because this one said it's like a 50 nanosecond, but this one is calculated like 100 nanoseconds, so it's a mismatch. So let's say this one also takes like a 100 nanosecond. Then eventually this average load latency will be 10.9 nanosecond, which is almost like 11 CPU cycles, which is like a long time. So on average, this one means that on average, like a single load instruction takes like 11 CPU cycles on average, right? So it's very important to reduce either this like cache miss rate or cache miss penalty, either of the two. And one way to like reduce this cache miss latency is exploiting like a bank level, what is called bank level parallelism. So as I said, multiple like a requests can be overlapped at the same time, right? When you actually process this like a DRAM request. So the strategy here is that you issue like a multiple, like a you handle like a multiple, memory requests at the same time, so that you can actually overlap the delay of this memory access over like multiple banks, right? So that's the basic like a strategy. So if you see, modern DRAM actually has like a multiple banks, like a 2-dimensional array. Like in this case, it actually has like 8 banks. B0 through like a B7. So each of these things can be like independently activated and accessed, accessed in columns and so on. So to exploit like this feature, we need like a non-blocking cache. So non-blocking cache allows you to allows like a hit under miss or miss under miss and so on. So now if you don't have like a non-blocking cache, let's say you only have like a blocking cache, then this cache miss actually blocks, blocks the cache so that, the later like a request is actually blocked. But if you actually allows like a hit under miss, then let's say this first cache miss actually blocks, first cache miss actually generates like a miss request to the memory, like a low level hierarchy. At the same time, the second request can be still served like this. let's say second request comes in, and you can actually hit. So this one actually shows that during the period when the first request is being served from the memory hierarchy, the second request can be actually serviced at the same time. I mean, can generate a cache hit. So in this way, you can actually do something useful here during this period, which actually reduce the effective like miss penalty by like working during miss. 그러니까 첫 번째 리퀘스트가 가서 지금 느린 메모리줄을 지금 가서 타고 있는 동안에 두 번째 리퀘스트가 그냥 캐시 hit이 나가지고 그냥 바로 데이터가 들어가면은 얘가 계속 CPU가 계속 뭔가 돌아갈 수 있을 거 아니에요. 그러니까 좀 더 그러니까 뭔가 그 레이턴시 페널티를 페이하는 동안에도 뭔가 유용한 일을 하겠다는 거죠. 그래서 좀 더 오버롤 레이턴시를 좀 줄이겠다는 거고. And after like 100 cycles, then actually this one comes back and then will be serviced later. This is called like hit under miss because the first miss actually does not block like a later cache hit, right? So that's the reason why it's called hit under miss. And also, there are like a hit under multiple miss or miss under miss cases, which may further lower the effective miss penalty by overlapping multiple misses, cache misses. So here, let's say we have like a one cache miss, and this actually is forwarded to like a lower level memory system. At the same time, maybe there's a second miss, which is forwarded to the, the memory system as well. Maybe this one actually falls on the different banks, then they can be actually processed independently in an overlapped manner. So eventually, all of this like a latency for handling 4 cache misses is much less than 400 cycles. 그죠? 그러니까 이렇게 멀티플 아웃스탠딩 미스가 있으면 원래 이렇게 하나씩 처리하면 100사이클 4개 처리하면 400사이클 걸릴 텐데 이렇게 오버래핑을 하니까 얘는 뱅크 0, 뱅크 1, 뱅크 2, 뱅크 3 이렇게 하면은 서로 다른 뱅크에 떨어지니까 얘들이 서로 인디펜던트하게 액세스가 되겠죠. 그래서 얘네들이 실제로 4개의 리퀘스트를 처리하는데 400사이클이 아니라 뭐 한 30사이클? 뭐 이 정도만에 4개의 리퀘스트가 처리가 되겠죠. 그래서 이런 식으로 뭔가 전체적으로 평균 미스 페널티를 줄일 수 있는 그런 방법이 있는 거죠. 1, 2, 3, 4 comes back like this. So effective miss penalty becomes much less than 400 cycles. That's the point. 자, 메모리 스케줄링 프로블럼부터는 그럼 다음 시간에 다시 하는 걸로 하고 오늘 일단 강의는 여기까지 하고요. 학생들 중에 혹시 그 점수 시험지 확인하고 싶은 학생들은 저기 우리 TA들이 오늘 저기 시험지를 가지고 왔으니까 일단 확인을 좀 하시고요. 아닌 학생들은 그냥 오늘 가셔도 되고 목요일 날 다시 수업 시간에 만나도록